I hate to take us from a terrible article into a worse article, but yeah, things do actually get worse when we're talking about non-consensual marriage and people being forced to marry their kidnappers. And that actually is a thing, so let's talk about that. So, let's go ahead and take a look here. Here's a quote. If a man loves a girl or secretly admires her, he will keep monitoring her movements without her knowledge. One day, when she is alone in an isolated place, he will capture her. And you can read the rest of that because I'm not going to. An adolescent girl shared that view with researchers during a focus group discussion that was had in Uganda on World Sexual Health Day, which this year has the theme of consent. Our communications officer, Florence Blondell, looked at this underreported type of forced marriage to see what can be done. Says, my husband kidnapped me when I was 17. He started beating me 3 days later. When I was 3 months pregnant, he beat me so hard that I lost the baby. Well, there goes my lunch. In various regions around the globe, spanning Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, young girls and women, especially those below the age of 18, must fight with their prospective spouses, who are frequently older men. Scratch that, because it's far worse. They are forcefully seized and captured by their intended partners, often with the assistance of other men, including family members. This is one of the reasons I'm against fucking arranged marriages. I think they're immoral. I think they're gross. These vulnerable and overpowered girls constantly and consistently find themselves on the losing end of this struggle. Tragically, in many instances, these girls are completely unaware of the individuals taking them. They're abruptly taken away and oftentimes subjected to sexual assault on the same day. Tragically, I just read that part. I'm good at reading. I'm not angry. You're angry. Their future will all too often be without agency or bodily autonomy, a life of basically repeated rape. Yeah, that's oh boy, let's do the geopolitics thing. So marriage by capture is, yes, still a thing. This is a practice known as marriage by capture. Associated with this term, engagement sex, or being forced into sexual intercourse with the intent to marry, but it is imperative to actually label what it truly is: rape. This cruel and repugnant form of forced marriage, known as bride kidnapping or marriage for abduction, is defined by coercion, manipulation, and aggression. It is unmistakably rooted in patriarchal norms, and this custom instills widespread fear among young girls. It starkly violates human rights, and it strips these girls of the freedom to chart their own paths, whether it's in seeking quality education, meaningful employment, or choosing life partners. I think that last one goes without saying. You don't really get to choose a life partner when your life partner freaking abducts you. Here's another quote here. In our days, bride capture was a common practice accompanied by the sexual act. Many of those old women you see around were married as a result of bride capture. This practice is still common, especially in village settings. The parents of the boy approach the parents of the girl for negotiations. You know, I remember when I was covering biblical gender roles, and he actually waxed lyrical about the idea of child marriages and arranged marriages and forced marriages. And I'm just going to say right now, this is the reality of that. People whose autonomy has been stripped from them. This is what you get with that scenario. This is what you get with biblical gender roles. It is indeed a family affair, but without the victim's knowledge in many cases, and rejections are highly discouraged. This deeply disturbing tradition, which perpetuates gender inequality, is deeply ingrained in certain cultures and accepted. Hard data is not easy to obtain, but the countries where it is currently thought to be the most prevalent include Ethiopia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, which is referred to as... where it is referred to as alakachu, meaning to take and run away, and of course in South Africa. A 2012 study by researchers at Duke University found that between 16 and 23% in Kyrgyzstan are abducted for marriage, but the rate is much higher among ethnic Kyrgyz, where a third of all marriages are due to kidnapping. That is horrifying. The most horrifying part of that, though, isn't just the fact that it's happening. Because that part's bad. That part's horrible. The people whose lives are repeatedly stripped away from them, where their ability to chart their own futures are ripped away, that's bad enough. What makes it worse, though, is that there are people who will be in my comment section. There are people who will have read this article. There are people right now who look at this and think, yeah, that's okay. It's one thing for it to exist. That's already horrendous, because there are real people whose lives are being stripped away from them as a result of that. It gets worse when you remember that there are people who live in Western society who want this kind of shit. They want this kind of stripping of rights of women, and there are some women who actually believe that this is an okay thing, that this would be an ideal scenario, not just for them, but for other people who do not consent to it. If you need examples of that, I would like to take you over to the transformed wife, Lori Alexander. You're a piece of work. But let's continue. Amnesty International reports that according to the Kyrgyzstani Ministry of Interior, 64% of police officers in the southern city Oshi consider bride kidnapping to be normal. And 82% of them believe that abduction is provoked by the women themselves. How? How can you provoke a kidnapping? What amount of angle do you have to show to promote a kidnapping? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. In Uganda, there are fears that the appalling practice is increasingly happening across the country. In February, a 17-year-old schoolgirl was taken, and that very night, the girl was sexually assaulted by the subject. A few months earlier, in August 2022, a 14-year-old girl's abduction for marriage was widely shared on social media, where a group of 8 men grabbed her as her aunt watched. She was whisked off to her expected marital bed, where she was confined for almost 4 days. That's the thing you do on a romantic honeymoon, not after kidnapping somebody. When kidnapping is involved, that is just 4 days of rape. That's all that is. God, YouTube's not going to be happy with me on the monetization process of this. In a 2022 International Labor Organization report, on any given day, roughly 22 million individuals were living in forced marriage in 2021. Nearly 3 in every 1,000 people in the world without their consent. Almost 15 million of them are women and girls. ILO adds that the numbers keep rising, with 6.6 million as a rise between 2016 and 2021. That is insane. That is insane to put into perspective. That's a practice that you expect to die out as the internet becomes a thing, as people become more influenced by other cultures, as more and more people start to see how other people live their lives, what it's like to live in a freer society. You expect stuff like that to fade away, to slowly go into the backdrop, to become the thing you only hear of in whispers, not increase by 6.6 million. That's huge. Kazooie says, I'm all for gun control, but can we give these young girls guns at this point? Just imagine that. Just imagine. You get kidnapped. You get kidnapped on your wedding night. Yeah, wedding night. That's not really what it is at that point. You get kidnapped. Everything's horror. Everything's struck. The guy, he throws you onto the bed, and then suddenly, blam. The assailant is no more. Goodbye. Orla Seraph says, I support open carry battle axes. The problem with a battle axe is you need to have the ability to wield it. Its heft is a bit of an issue. A gun is an equalizer. You can be a tiny victim, and you don't need to have any type of leverage to just aim a gun, point, and shoot. You might hurt your wrist. You might dislocate a shoulder, depending on the caliber of the gun. But the assailant, they won't be an assailant anymore. They will simply be on the ground. They're not hurting you anymore. They're just gone. Sir, it's time to sacrifice more people to the Philosopher's Stone project to expand my jewelry collection. Ninjef says aim low. No, you don't aim low, you aim for the chest. You aim for the chest. When you aim low, your chance to miss gets higher. When you aim for the head, the chance to miss gets higher. When you aim for the chest, you get to break off these, you get to break off a person's center of gravity, and also it is the largest target on the body. So aim for the head of the aorta? No, you aim for the chest. I'm telling you. If you take a self-defense class with a gun, they will not tell you aim for the head of the aorta or trachea. They will not tell you any of that. They will tell you aim to the chest. I didn't know the aorta was in the chest. I'm an idiot. But they will just say the chest. They're not going to be like, aha, go for the aorta. So it isn't its center of mass, which, I mean, is the chest, but still, yeah, you want the center of mass because that is what adds stopping power to the round. I said bigger target, even if you don't get a kill shot, they're going to be in too much pain to do anything else to you. Yep. See, this is evidence that I don't know jack about human anatomy. Thank you for the correction, Alpha Mario. There's another quote here. The increase in forced marriage is partially explained by compounding crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts, and climate change, which have increased the risk of forced child marriage. These crises have led to unprecedented increase in extreme poverty, lower education rates, a rise in distress migration, and significant increases in reports of gender-based violence. All of these factors are associated with increased vulnerability to forced marriages. And again, there are people here in the States who just want this for reasons I cannot even begin to fathom. Maybe it's because that's the only way they think they'll get a date. While child marriage is not captured in the ILO figures, it is considered a form of forced marriage, given that one or both parties cannot express full, free, and informed consent. Moreover, close to 700 million women and girls living today were married before the age of 18, and 12 million are married off each year, according to UNICEF. Some sadly experience the cruelest form of forced marriage, capture, which we already went over earlier in the article. There is another quote here from a female survivor of 3 forced marriages. 3?! Jesus Christ! Said, I had to leave the situation or be killed. I know I can never return home because I am considered a dead person for breaking the culture and bringing shame to the families. According to my father, I am dead. Well, I guess a corpse can't commit any crimes, right? Don't do anything about that. The year is 2023, and yet girls and women remain disrespected and abused through what is supposed to be an archaic, long-forgotten custom. But it is a social norm that should have never existed. Young girls are forced to assume responsibilities beyond their years, including dealing with sexually transmitted diseases like HIV and AIDS, and becoming unwilling mothers, which their bodies are not ready for. According to the Uganda Police Office, it's a cultural practice that is archaic, unconstitutional, and violates the rights of a girl child. But the practice puts the girl child at risk of sexual violence on their forced wedding night, draws them into premature motherhood, and pressures them to bear children. In a paper, Forced Marriage and Birth Outcomes, researchers found that children born to mothers in kidnap-based marriages have lower birth weight compared with children born to other mothers. More often, though, having been kidnapped is so shameful that the victim or her family agrees to marriage rather than risk the stigma of being a used woman. Man, and you try to explain to conservatives why the comparison of women to things like chewing gum is not only stupid but incredibly harmful, when they're just like, no, I just want a nice virgin girl. No! Shut the fuck up. Stop contributing to the stigma, because when you do that, you inch us closer and closer to this shit. And you might not think you do, but trust me, you do. So, it says here, what to do. Gender inequalities are pervasive and putting us off track in many of these sustainable development goals, including SDG 5, which calls for the end of forced marriages. Ending poverty is vital. While the vile practice of abducting brides has been outlawed almost everywhere, it still persists. And some of the reasons, it does include poverty. Girls and women are forced to marry in exchange for payment to their families, the cancellation of a debt, or to settle family disputes. I'm sure every one of you has read some type of smut involving a girl who married herself off to a rich baron in order to get rid of her family's loan on a house. In Kyrgyzstan, where about 1 in 5 Kyrgyz girls is affected by bride kidnapping, they are trying out a mobile game to end the custom since enforcing the law is proving ineffectual. The game involves players in the decision-making process and allows them to see from the outside what this or that decision will lead to. Players find allies and receive legal advice. They begin to develop a plan for salvation for their friend. Players can then get to know their fears, and they can understand that they are not alone, and that fear can be fought. Interesting. What is the mobile game called? I'm curious. What's the question, Sephi? Interesting. It's your first year of university. Your best friend is kidnapped for marriage by a group of men. What do you do? That's the question that drives Spring and Bishek, a mobile game that has been launched with the support of Spotlight Initiative. That's actually kind of cool. Let's use video games to save people from forced marriages? Hell yeah, video games are based. Said if I had not passed through the school, I wouldn't have survived a forced marriage. Education also matters, particularly comprehensive sexual education. Wow, another thing Republicans try to actually ban in schools. It's almost like it's important. It certainly saved one 15-year-old girl in the Kabong district, Uganda, from this abhorrent yet widely accepted practice of wrestling girls straight to marital misery. At Population Matters, we back all these solutions, and that's just more stuff from the website. If you need that information, then you can go ahead and go to populationmatters.org and take a look at all the information they have there. But this was an article submitted to me by Raj, and it's a lot. It's a whole hell of a lot. It's a lot to internalize. Sephi, you're talking about Kent Hovind. Yeah, Kent Hovind was the one who got super happy about beating his kid at the dentist. But yeah, that's I'd normally end one of these with giving me your opinions in the comment section below, but honestly, I would hope the opinions are all the same there, except maybe on the what to do front. So it points out, the world is not on track to achieve gender equality here. There's all this information here about how legislative gender quotas are effective in achieving equality in politics, but yet there are people who still don't like affirmative action. 3 in every 5 people in a forced marriage are in lower middle income countries, so trying to send economic aid to those countries might actually help here. But what solutions might you have? This is one of those things where if you live in one of these countries, maybe you can actually be part of a solution here, or this might be your moment to go and do something out in the real world, change somebody else's life. Maybe you don't like living at your normal 9-to-5 job that you're at, and trying to get involved in saving people is something that you've always thought about doing. I mean, hell, there's an organization here that looks like they're trying to do stuff with just that. But with that said, let me know what solutions you can posit here. Let me know what you might do about something like this, if you're going to do something about this. Hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert end the video tagline here. I didn't know I had a violence fetish, but okay, Alpha Mario. Hi, welcome to the end of the video. You made it here. Congrats. Depending on which one this is on the end of, you're probably low on stamina. But let's go ahead and do fan art. Hopefully there'll be a palette cleanser after the end of all that. This one is from Lika. Says, I'm a terrible artist, but the Twitch channel is... Oh, this is from Sarah Chikorita. The next one we have here is from Lunar Muse Serenity. Actual fan art this time. It is yet another outfit idea from Lunar Muse. I wish I was in the financial situation I was in late 2022 so that I could afford to actually, put these outfits on my characters. I don't have money anymore. But the next one we have here is from Lisbean. No context given, but very, very nice nonetheless. I really appreciate the colors. I really do. As always, everybody, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, make sure that you... Wait a minute. Are my gems colored opposite? Huh! That's That's the first time I've seen that before. That's freaking cool. Oh, sorry. It's the end of the video. You should probably go. You should probably go. The credit should be rolling now. Why aren't the credits rolling? Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.